I can still remember the way the kitchen light flickered that night, how it buzzed faintly above the table, as if even the electricity didn't want to hear what was coming. Rachel stood across from me with her hands on the counter, her gym bag slung over one shoulder, her hair still damp from her late workout. The smell of her shampoo mixed with the scent of burnt coffee. I was half asleep, scrolling through invoices, thinking about nothing at all, until she spoke. "Ethan," she said softly, "I need a real man." At first I laughed. The kind of short, nervous laugh people make when a joke lands wrong. But she didn't laugh back. She just looked at me, her eyes steady, her lips trembling slightly, like she was rehearsing a line she'd said to herself 100 times. "You're kind, Ethan," she continued, "but I feel like I'm living with a roommate. I need someone who makes me feel alive." The word slid across the table and lodged somewhere between my ribs. Alive. We'd been married for 8 years. We built this house together, paid off our first car, planted a maple tree in the backyard that now reached the second-floor window. And suddenly, I was a roommate. I remember trying to speak, but my throat closed up. The only sound was the steady hum of the refrigerator and the rain tapping against the window. When she finally walked out, I didn't follow. I just sat there, staring at her empty cup, a ring of lipstick still around the rim. That little crimson circle looked like a brand on the edge of my life. The next morning, she was gone. No fight, no note, just an empty drawer and the faint smell of her perfume in the hallway. Everyone told me to let her go. Friends said, "You're better off, man." She was cold. My mother said, "Time heals, honey." But time didn't heal anything. It just stretched the silence between one heartbeat and the next. For weeks, I kept replaying that sentence, a real man. What did that even mean? Someone who lifted heavier? Who yelled louder? Who could throw a punch instead of an apology? The cruel part was, she didn't just leave quietly. Pictures of her started popping up on social media, smiling beside Chase, her gym trainer. Tattoos, muscles, the whole fantasy. She looked radiant. I looked invisible. One night, I found myself scrolling through their photos with a bottle of whiskey open beside me. Every image felt like a punch. Then something changed. I stopped feeling small. I started feeling focused. I closed the bottle, opened my laptop, and began typing. I didn't write to her. I wrote to myself. A list. Everything she'd said I wasn't. Everything she thought she'd find somewhere else. I made a promise that night, not to become someone new for her, but to remember who I used to be before her words made me doubt it. Over the next few weeks, I started rebuilding myself in quiet ways. Morning runs, cooking real food again, fixing the squeaky door she always complained about. The weight I lost wasn't just on my body, it was in my chest. Then one afternoon, while grabbing coffee downtown, I met Lily. She was sitting alone by the window, reading something on her tablet. I noticed the same brand of protein shake Rachel used to drink sitting on the table, and I almost turned away, but she looked up at that exact second and smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile that tries too hard. It was gentle, like she'd just recognized me from a dream she once had. We started talking. About nothing important, coffee, weather, music. But her eyes had warmth I hadn't felt in months. When I told her my name, she hesitated for a moment, as if it meant something to her. Then she smiled again and said, "Nice to meet you, Ethan." We met again a few days later, then again after that. She was calm, funny, grounded. There was something familiar about her that I couldn't place. Sometimes her phone would buzz, and she'd ignore it quickly, sliding it face down on the table. I noticed, but I didn't ask. Maybe I didn't want to know. Still, I couldn't deny how I felt when she brushed my hand or leaned close to tell a story. The space between us pulsed with quiet electricity, the kind of warmth that makes your heartbeat sound louder than the music around you. I caught myself smiling again. For the first time since Rachel left, life had color. One evening, Lily asked if I'd ever been married. I nodded, expecting her to ask more, but she didn't. She just looked at me for a long moment, like she already knew every answer. When I got home that night, I walked past the framed wedding photo still hanging in the hallway. For a moment, I thought about taking it down, but I didn't. Not yet, because something told me that the story wasn't over. And deep down, a quiet, unsettling thought flickered through my mind. Maybe Lily hadn't just walked into my life by chance. The house taught me how to count, not with numbers, but with absences. One toothbrush instead of two. One pillow with the faint shape of a head, the other uncreased. One coffee mug on the rack, one lonely click from the thermostat at 6 a.m. Every morning, I woke up on the left side of the mattress because my body hadn't learned the new geography of my life. The right side stayed cool, the sheet untouched like snow no one wanted to step on. I tried to sell the silence with small sounds, podcasts, talk radio, the blender grinding ice. It worked until night fell. Then the house remembered it was hollow and began to echo things I didn't want to hear. The last time Rachel laughed in the hallway, the soft thud of her gym bag, the way she used to hum off-key while packing a salad she never ate. I hated that my mind played her like a greatest hits album. People asked if I'd seen her photos. I had. I pretended I hadn't. The first one that went wide looked like an ad. Rachel and Chase, sunburned, grinning, the lake behind them a sheet of hammered metal under the afternoon sun. Her caption said something about finding herself. I stared at her hand on his chest. It wasn't jealousy that burned. It was the knowledge that she'd taken the same hand from my palm and never looked back. I needed something to hold that wasn't memory. So I built a schedule. Run at dawn along the river. Eat a real breakfast. Work until my thoughts steadied. Lift in the garage to the metronome of plates kissing the bar. I didn't become a different man. I became a more honest version of the one I'd let go missing. My chest loosened. Clothes fit the way they were meant to. I slept without waking to imaginary footsteps. When I saw Lily again at the cafe, she waved like we'd arranged it. She wore a charcoal sweater and a messy bun that made her look more accidental than styled. We took the corner table with the chipped varnish, and I let her talk first. She told me she was between things, between apartments, between jobs, between whatever it is people mean when they say they're figuring stuff out. Somehow, the words didn't sound like a performance. They sounded like a door she kept ajar in case the room got too bright. We could do the river walk, she said, fingers grazing the rim of her cup. It's nice at sunset. I agreed without checking my calendar. On the path, the air smelled like damp leaves, and the river carried a slow bronze sheen toward the bridge. Couples moved in predictable loops, hands linked, voices low. When Lily brushed my arm because the path narrowed, I felt heat climb from my wrist to my collar. She didn't pull away immediately. She let the contact linger the way good music holds the last note a heartbeat too long. You always look like you're waiting for a verdict, she said, not unkindly. Do I? You carry it in your shoulders. Like you're preparing for a hit that might not come. I laughed, but the sound didn't quite make it. I guess I don't want to be surprised again. Surprise isn't the problem, she said. Trusting the wrong person is. It was a simple sentence, but it found purchase. I watched the water fold and breathe under the pilings, and I wondered how much of myself I was willing to show a stranger who spoke like she'd rehearsed the shape of my hurt. That night, Rachel texted for the first time in weeks. Need to pick up a few things. My blue suitcase, the copper pan, some files. No apology. No hello. Just a logistics memo from a woman who once read novels out loud to me on airplanes when turbulence made me grip the armrest too hard. I told her Saturday at 5. I vacuumed, not for her, but for my own sanity, because a clean floor made the space feel like mine again. I put her files on the dining table. I set the copper pan beside them, polished without thinking until I could see my face in the hammered dents. She arrived in a rush of perfume and cool air. For a second, muscle memory made me want to open my arms. She slipped past and headed straight for the table, talking about traffic, about how the city made no sense, about how I'd always been better with directions. She avoided my eyes. I avoided the framed photo in the hallway. You look different, she said, meaning thinner, meaning steadier, meaning further away. Just routine, I said. She lingered in the kitchen longer than she needed to, as if the room might volunteer a reason for my calm. Her gaze landed on the empty space where her mug used to be. She asked if I'd seen a black hoodie. I told her no and watched the lie glide across the tile and vanish under the refrigerator. When she was about to leave, I heard myself say, I'm seeing someone. It wasn't a boast. It was an announcement delivered to the air between us, a flag planted on neutral ground. Her mouth opened and closed. Already. Not a contest. What's her name? Lily. Something flickered in her expression, recognition, or the fear of it. She masked it with a tight smile. I'm glad you're moving on. But on the porch, with the suitcase rolling behind her and the copper pan tucked under her arm like a shield, she paused and glanced back through the storm door. For the first time since the kitchen declaration, she looked unsure. After she left, I walked to the garage and leaned against the workbench until the metal cooled my back. The house felt different, lighter, like it had exhaled. I checked my phone. A message from Lily waited. How did it go? Strange, I typed. But clean. Good. You deserve clean, she wrote. And then, after a beat, dinner tomorrow? My place. I make a mean roasted salmon. Warmth rose through me that wasn't just hunger. I said yes. When I arrived the next evening, her apartment smelled like lemon and rosemary. The table was set in a way that didn't feel staged. Linen napkins, an old bottle repurposed as a vase, a single white flower leaning as if listening. We ate, we talked. We let the quiet happen without sprinting to fill it. When she reached to take my plate, her wrist brushed my fingers and the contact crackled. I held her gaze and felt the ground tilt in a way that made me want to trust gravity again. Later, standing at her door, she looked at me with something like decision. You're not what she said you were, she whispered. What did she say I was? Missing, Lily said. But you're right here. On the drive home, the radio stayed silent. Streetlights stitched the road into neat squares, and the night smelled like rain that couldn't commit. I parked and sat a long time with my hands on the wheel, trying to name the pull in my chest. It felt dangerous and necessary at once, like stepping into cold water because staying warm had become another kind of pain. As I killed the engine, a thought arrived uninvited and sat down like it planned to stay. The way Rachel had reacted to Lily's name, the quick shudder across her eyes. I told myself it was nothing. Coincidence. A ripple without a stone. But the house had taught me how to count, and now I could count that, too. One look that didn't fit. One softness that felt like a secret. One new beginning that hummed with a tone I recognized from somewhere I couldn't place. I locked the door, crossed the cool, unclaimed side of the bed, and lay awake listening to the slow tick of the hall clock, the sound of a verdict I didn't know I'd already reached. Lily's apartment was a soft contradiction. Plants thriving near half-drawn curtains, an unmade couch blanket, the faint hum of a jazz station that faded in and out like someone's memory. She handed me a drink before I could refuse and smiled in that quiet way she had, like warmth wasn't something she offered, just something that lived around her. We sat near the window while dusk poured in. Outside, car lights stitched the street into thin red lines. Inside, she talked about ordinary things, how she missed her mother's cooking, how she once tried to paint but couldn't stand the smell of turpentine. I told her about the house, about the maple tree in the yard that still leaned toward the old swing Rachel had begged me not to cut down. The conversation floated between us, comfortable, careful. When she leaned forward to take the glass from my hand, her fingers brushed mine and didn't hurry away. For a heartbeat the air tilted. She laughed, soft and nervous, and said, "Sorry, I keep forgetting personal space exists." I told her I didn't mind, and I meant it. Later, she moved to the kitchen to check the salmon. The smell of lemon and butter drifted out, reminding me that I hadn't eaten at a table with another person in months. I watched her from the doorway, her hair tied loosely, the back of her neck catching the amber light. Something in the simplicity of it all made me feel both steady and fragile at once. We ate slow, letting the night expand. She told me she'd grown up in another state, that she'd come here to be closer to family. Her voice carried a small ache when she said the word family, the kind of ache that doesn't need explaining. I asked if she had siblings. She nodded once, eyes dipping toward her plate. "One brother," she said. "We're not close anymore." The way she ended it, sharp, almost clipped, made me want to ask more. But I didn't. Everyone deserved one locked door. After dinner she put on a record. Something old and smoky filled the room, and we sat there listening, not quite touching, not quite apart. The sound of the vinyl crackling between songs felt human, imperfect. She looked at me then, really looked, and said, "You have that face people only get after they've been hurt." I smiled without meaning to. Is that supposed to be a compliment? It means you've lived through something and didn't break. She paused. Most people shatter. You just changed shape. Her words slid somewhere deep and stayed there. I didn't know what to say, so I stood to help with the dishes. She joined me at the sink, our elbows brushing while warm water ran over our hands. Every small touch sent a quiet current up my arm. It wasn't lust. It was something older, heavier, like remembering what it meant to be wanted without proving you deserved it. When I left, she walked me to the door, barefoot, hair falling out of its tie. "Come over again," she said, almost like a challenge. "I'd like that." The door clicked shut behind me, and the hallway light hummed faintly as I walked away. On the drive home, I felt that strange pull again, the mix of peace and suspicion that followed her everywhere. I replayed her tone when she mentioned her brother, the hesitation before she'd said his name. Something about it hovered just out of reach, like a word on the tip of the tongue. I shook it off, turned up the radio, let the music fill the empty spaces. That weekend, I decided to clear out the last of Rachel's things. I boxed her shoes, the photos, the travel guides she never used. When I lifted the final drawer, I found a stack of old gym passes, the ones she'd kept for discounts. A name was scribbled on the back of one: Chase Morgan Fitness, manager, Rena Brooks. My breath caught. I'd heard that name before, but couldn't place it until I saw Lily's contact pop up on my phone. Lily Brooks. The coincidence hit like cold water. Brooks. It could mean nothing. It could mean everything. I sat on the floor for a long time, the plastic card between my fingers, the walls too quiet to ignore. That night, Lily texted again. "Dinner tomorrow? I'll cook at your place this time." I stared at the message, thumb hovering above the keyboard. Part of me wanted to ask about her brother, about her last name, about why she'd walked into my life just as Rachel walked out. Another part of me didn't want the answer. "Sure," I typed finally. "7 okay?" When she arrived the next evening, the sunset bled through the blinds, painting the kitchen gold. She brought a bottle of wine and a look that made the house seem less haunted. We cooked side by side, and for the first time since Rachel left, the right side of the bed didn't look like a monument. It looked like an invitation. After dinner, she lingered near the window, tracing the rim of her glass. "You ever think about running into her again?" she asked. "I try not to," I said, though the question tightened something in my chest. "Maybe you should." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes seeing what's broken reminds you how much stronger you are now." I studied her face in the half-light and wondered what she was really saying. But then she reached out, and the space between us disappeared. The world shrank to the warmth of her breath, the rhythm of two people learning to breathe in the same moment. For once, I didn't overthink it. I just let the night happen. When she finally left, the house didn't feel empty. It felt expectant. Still, as I turned off the lights, I couldn't stop thinking about that name, Brooks, and the quiet way she'd said her brother and she weren't close. I lay in bed, eyes on the ceiling, listening to the faint creak of branches outside. Somewhere in the dark, pieces were beginning to line up, though I didn't yet know the picture they were forming. Sleep came slow, heavy, uncertain. Before it took me, I whispered the name once more into the quiet room, just to see how it sounded in the air between one life and the next. Brooks. It started with a text from Rachel. Just 5 words. "We should talk. About us." I stared at it for a long time, unsure which part of the sentence was the lie. We, talk, or us. It had been almost 3 months since she'd left, and now, suddenly, she wanted to talk. The timing felt too precise, too deliberate, as if she somehow knew that the right side of the bed wasn't cold anymore. When I told Lily about the message, she didn't flinch. She only tilted her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Then let's invite her over," she said. I laughed, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. "Ethan," she added softly, "you don't need to hide what's already healed." It sounded brave, but something about her tone made me pause. Still, I agreed. Maybe part of me wanted to prove something. To Rachel, to myself, to whoever was still watching the wreckage. The next day, I sent the invitation, dinner. Saturday. Just closure. She replied within minutes. "Fine. I'll come." Saturday evening arrived painted in slow golden light. I cooked early, nervous energy carrying me through chopping onions and stirring sauces I didn't even plan to serve. The doorbell rang just before 6. Rachel stood there in a pale blue dress I hadn't seen before, her hair pulled back, her perfume a familiar weapon. "Nice place," she said, stepping inside as if she'd never left. Her eyes swept over the living room. New curtains, cleaner lines, fewer photographs. "You redecorated." "Had to," I said. "Things change." She looked at me, half smiling, half studying. "You look different too." I didn't answer. The oven timer beeped behind me, and as I turned toward the kitchen, another sound cut through the silence. Heels clicking against the hardwood. Rachel frowned. Are you expecting someone? Before I could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway, carrying a bottle of wine. Sorry I'm late, she said, smiling easily. Traffic was a nightmare. Rachel froze. The color drained from her face as she looked at Lily, then back at me. Ethan, who's this? I met her eyes and spoke slowly. This is Lily, my girlfriend. For a moment, I thought Rachel might laugh it off, pretend it didn't matter. But instead, her hand tightened around her purse strap. You're kidding. Lily stepped forward, setting the wine on the counter. It's nice to meet you, Rachel. Her tone was polite, almost warm, but her eyes didn't blink. The air thickened. Rachel's gaze darted between us, confusion slowly giving way to disbelief. Then something in her expression shifted, recognition, dawning and sharp. Wait, she whispered. Lily. Brooks? Lily smiled faintly. You remember. Rachel took a step back, hand pressed against her chest. You're Ren's sister. The room went still. Even the clock on the wall seemed to pause. Yes, Lily said softly. I am. Rachel's eyes widened as she tried to piece it together. This can't be real. Ethan, do you know who she is? I do now, I said quietly. She told me about her brother. Rachel shook her head, her voice rising. She's playing you. She's just trying to get back at me, at him. Lily's smile didn't fade. I'm not trying, Rachel. I already did. Rachel's breath came shallow. You don't understand. Ren and I understand perfectly. Lily interrupted, her voice suddenly cold. I understand what you did to his fiancée. How you pretended to be her friend while sneaking around behind her back. How you broke people and called it love. Rachel's hand trembled. You're lying. Am I? Lily leaned closer, her tone calm, deliberate. Then why did he move across the country the week after your relationship ended? Why did he stop speaking to our parents altogether? The silence that followed was suffocating. Rachel's lips parted, but no words came out. I watched her, realizing I didn't even know this version of her, the one stripped of confidence, cornered by her own ghosts. I didn't bring Lily here to humiliate you, I said finally. You wanted to talk about us. Well, here we are, the past and the present, sitting at the same table. Rachel's eyes glistened with something between anger and regret. You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. Just free. She turned toward the door, muttering something I couldn't catch. For a second, I almost stopped her. Almost. But Lily spoke first, her voice soft, final. Goodbye, Rachel. The door shut with a quiet click. We didn't speak for a long time after she left. The wine sat unopened, the dinner untouched. Finally, Lily exhaled and said, I didn't expect it to feel this empty. Revenge always does, I said, surprising myself. She looked at me then, her expression unreadable. You're not angry at me for not telling you sooner? I shook my head. I'm too tired for anger. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was warm, grounding. You deserve better than the pieces she left behind. For a moment, I believed her. Later that night, after she'd gone home, I sat alone by the window, replaying every word, every look. Lily's calm precision, Rachel's panic, and that strange mixture of satisfaction and unease twisting inside me. I should have felt closure. Instead, I felt something else, like I had just opened a door that didn't lead where I thought it would. Outside, the wind moved through the maple tree, shaking loose the last of its leaves. I watched them fall one by one, a slow, quiet storm. I told myself it was over. But deep down, I knew better. The morning after the dinner, the house felt overly tidy, like a stage set after the audience had gone home. I walked through each room, noticing fingerprints on the wine bottle we never opened, 2 plates we never filled, a faint crescent of Lily's gloss on a water glass. Evidence of a night that should have been a clean cut and instead left threads dangling in the air. I ran by the river to steady my head. The sun came up slow, lifting fog from the water like someone peeling gauze from a wound. By the time I got home, the shake in my hands had softened to a thrum. I showered, made coffee, and stared at my phone until it lit. Coffee later? Lily wrote. There's a farmer's market downtown. I typed yes without thinking. I needed to see her in daylight, away from the theater of last night, to make sure what we had was made of more than shared anger. The market was a sprawl of color, peaches running gold at the edges, tomatoes stacked like polished hearts, sunflowers staring without apology. Lily wore a loose white dress and a denim jacket, hair down, sunglasses pushed into it like a careless crown. When she saw me, something in her shoulders dropped, as if she'd been holding her breath and didn't realize it until I arrived. We walked without buying anything at first. She hooked her arm through mine, a simple claim that quieted the restless part of me. When she leaned to smell a basket of basil, the scent rose warm and green, and the curve of her neck caught the light in a way that felt like a memory I wanted to own. "About last night," she said finally, eyes on a pile of cherries. "I didn't mean to steal the moment. You invited her for closure. I turned it into something else." "You told the truth," I said, because that was easier than everything underneath. If anything was stolen, it was already gone. She nodded, though her mouth said she didn't fully believe me. "Buy these with me," she added, lifting the cherries. "We'll bake something. You can play sous chef." At her apartment, the afternoon fell through the blinds in soft bars. We baked clumsily, flour on our elbows, sugar on the counter, a recipe open on her tablet that we ignored after the second line. She gave me tasks: pit, stir, taste. Every now and then our wrists touched, and heat moved up my arm like a quiet spark. The pie came out uneven and perfect, the kind of dessert you can only make when you're not trying to impress anyone. While it cooled, she put on a record. The same crackle, the same velvet hush between tracks. She took my hand and tugged me into a slow sway in the living room. No choreography, just breath and pulse and the soft slide of her cheek against mine. There was a moment when the world narrowed to the distance between her mouth and my ear, and I felt a pull so strong it was almost gravitational. She whispered my name like she was testing how it fit in her mouth. I closed my eyes and let the sound find a home in me. Her phone vibrated on the table, and we both paused. The name on the screen faced away, but the tone of it, her quick inhale, the small steel that touched her posture, told me it wasn't a spam call. She silenced it and slipped the phone into a drawer with a motion so practiced it became its own confession. "Work?" I asked, light as I could manage. "Something like that," she said, and kissed me in a way that made questions feel like crimes. We ate pie standing at the counter, forks scraping plates, cherry juice staining our tongues. We didn't talk about Rachel or Run. We talked about unremarkable things: the long line at the bakery on 3rd, the guy who always jogged with 2 leashes and no dogs, the maple tree in my yard that now threw shade exactly where I wanted to place a bench. Normal was its own narcotic. Later, I drove Lily to a small gallery opening near the river. The place smelled like paint and ambition. We drifted through abstract storms and immaculate portraits, shoulders grazing, our silence companionable. In one room, a photograph stopped me cold, an empty field under a heavy sky, a child's kite tangled in the fence at the edge. Something about it felt like the exact shape of last night's emptiness, the way a clean break still leaves frayed ends. Lily squeezed my fingers without looking at me, as if she'd seen it land. On the way out, wind lifted her hair, and for a second I saw the girl she might have been. Reckless, bright, the kind who ran toward waves just to feel the water punch her ankles. I wanted to ask about her brother right then, about what exactly Rachel had broken, about the geography of her anger. I wanted a map. Instead, I held the door and let her walk through, choosing grace over curiosity because grace felt safer. Back at my place we cooked again, because feeding someone is a vow even when you don't say it out loud. I set the table with the linen napkins Rachel never liked. Lily lit a candle. The room took a breath with us, and the house no longer sounded like it was waiting for a different life to come home. We were halfway through pasta when she set her fork down and said, "I need to tell you something." The way she said it made the walls lean closer. I braced without meaning to. "Okay. Ren didn't just leave town," she said. "He left because he couldn't face what he'd done. He had a fiancé, Ethan. A good one. And he hurt her. I watched it happen, and I watched Rachel smile while it burned. Air went tight in my chest. "You don't owe me this." "I do," she said. "Because I didn't find you by accident. I knew your name before we met. I came to the cafe because I knew you went there." She watched my face as if she expected it to shatter. I told myself it was so I could understand the person she threw away. At first it was that. Then it wasn't. The floor did a small, almost imperceptible tilt. Behind my ribs, something old and raw reached for armor. Still, I wasn't surprised. Not fully. Recognition slid into place like a key finally turning. The gym pass, the last name. the practiced way she handled silence. All of it had been pointing here. How long have you known? I asked, more curious than wounded. Since the night she called him a real man, she said. That phrase moves. It lands where it can do the most damage. It landed on me, too. I let the words sit. Then I nodded and reached across the table. Okay, I said. So we started wrong. But we started. She closed her eyes and exhaled like a diver breaking the surface. When she opened them, there was water there, but also light. I wanted to make sure I wasn't using you, she whispered. And then I realized I already cared too much to make clean choices. We cleared the plates in a quiet that wasn't brittle. The candle burned down to a soft bowl of wax. When we moved to the couch, she curled against me with a trust that felt earned, not staged. The house vibrated with a low, human hum. Much later, after she'd gone, I stood at the sink and washed the same glass 3 times. The night had given me relief and unease in equal measure. We were honest now, or closer to it. Yet a question kept circling like a hawk, deciding if the field held anything alive. If Lily had found me, who else was watching whom? My phone lit on the counter. A new message from an unknown number. Tell Lily to stop. Tell her to leave it alone. No signature. Just that warning, or plea, or threat, blinking on the screen like a match in a dark room. I stared at it until the words blurred. Then I took a screenshot, archived the thread, and shut off the phone. The house went dim. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was charged, like the pause before thunder. I locked the door, walked past the framed photo in the hall, and finally took it down. The nail left a small, bright wound in the paint. I pressed my thumb to it, and felt the cool spot where something used to hang. Somewhere outside, wind moved through the maple and the last dry leaves clattered softly against one another, as if agreeing on a secret. The message from the unknown number kept echoing in my head long after I deleted it. Tell Lily to stop. The words had weight, like a small stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading through everything I thought I understood. When morning came, the kitchen looked ordinary again. Clean counters, filtered light, the coffee machine humming like it didn't know anything had changed. But I did. Every sound felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the distant bark of a dog, the faint vibration of my phone, even when no one was calling. I drove to Lily's apartment before noon. She opened the door in an oversized sweatshirt, hair still tangled from sleep. You look like you didn't, she said, yawning. I didn't, I admitted. We need to talk. Her expression sobered as I stepped inside. The same record from the other night sat idle on the player, needle lifted mid-groove. She poured coffee, black, strong enough to wake a corpse. What happened? She asked. I slid my phone across the counter. I got this last night. She read the message, eyes narrowing. No number? Blocked ID. Her fingers traced the edge of the screen. Could be anyone. Rachel, maybe. Or, she hesitated. Or Ren. You told me he left. He did, she said. But that doesn't mean he stopped watching. I studied her face, the quick pulse at her throat, the way her voice dropped when she said his name. You think he'd threaten you? I think he'd warn me, she said softly. Ren doesn't like losing control. The sentence sat between us, sharp as glass. I wanted to ask more, what exactly she meant by control, but I saw something in her eyes that told me to wait. Instead, I said, come stay at my place for a while, just until this settles. She smiled weakly. You're sweet, Ethan, but I'm not running anymore. Over the next few days, life slipped back into a rhythm that wasn't quite normal, but close enough to fake it. We cooked. We watched movies. We talked about nothing. Still, the air around us felt charged, like a room holding its breath. I noticed small things. Lily checking her rearview mirror twice when we drove, locking her phone with an extra code, leaving lights on when she went to bed. She said it was habit. I told myself it didn't matter. But one night, as we lay on the couch half asleep, her phone buzzed again. Same vibration, same length. She didn't move to check it. I did. Don't, she murmured, half awake. Who is it? Wrong number, she said too quickly. The screen glowed faintly in the dark. The preview line read, he doesn't know yet, does he? When I looked at her, she was already awake, eyes open, watching me. Tell me what this is, I said. Her voice was barely a whisper. It's about Ren. I waited. He's back in town, she said finally. He sent that. He knows we're together. The room tilted. You think he's the one who messaged me too? She nodded. He wants me to drop it. He knows what we did to Rachel. What we did, I repeated. Lily sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. You think that dinner was my first move? I've been building this for months. Rachel wasn't supposed to know who I was yet, but she found out sooner than I planned. Ren must have told her. Her honesty landed like a confession and a dare all at once. So you admit it, I said quietly. You came to me for revenge. I came to you to understand her, she said. And maybe him. But then I stayed because I wanted to understand you. I wanted to be angry, but instead I felt something heavier. Pity, maybe, or recognition. Because hadn't I done the same thing? Turned pain into a map and followed it until it led me here? The next evening, I got another text. Meet me tomorrow. 7 p.m. Pier 9. Come alone. No name. But I didn't need one. I showed it to Lily. She read it once and went pale. He's not bluffing, Ethan. Don't go. If I don't, I said, he'll keep circling. I need to end this. She grabbed my hand, eyes pleading. Then let me come with you. I shook my head. This started between the three of you. It ends with me. Her grip tightened, then released. If you're not back by 9, she said, I'm calling the police. The next evening, the pier was nearly empty. Wind pushed the water against the wood in slow, heavy sighs. The sky hung low, bruised with storm. He was already there, broad-shouldered, hood up, hands in his pockets. Ren, the man Rachel had called a real one. You're Ethan, he said without preamble. His voice was rough, older than I expected. I am, I said. He looked me over, nodding slowly. You don't look like the guy she described. And you don't look like the hero she made you out to be. That earned a small laugh. Touché. He stepped closer. You think you won something here? My sister? Your little redemption story? I didn't come to win, I said. I came to understand. Ren's smile faded. Understand what? That my sister used you to settle her score? That your ex-wife used me to destroy hers? We're all puppets in someone else's hands, Ethan. You're just late to the show. The wind shifted, whipping between us. He pulled something from his pocket, a folded piece of paper, and held it out. You should see what she's hiding before you decide how noble she is. I hesitated, then took it. It was a photograph. Lily and Rachel, together, smiling, arms around each other. A picture taken months before any of this began. She was friends with her? I whispered. Ren nodded. They planned it together. You, me, everyone. Some kind of twisted therapy project. Until Rachel caught feelings for me, and Lily didn't forgive her. I looked at the photo again. The smiles were real. The betrayal, deeper. When I looked up, Ren was gone. Just the wind and the sound of water slapping the dock. That night, I sat alone in the dark, the photo trembling between my fingers. The edges were damp from rain or sweat. It didn't matter which. I thought of Lily's words, of her warmth, her laughter, her promise of truth. Then I thought of Rachel's smirk, her disdain, her pride. If Ren was telling the truth, everything I'd built was another lie wearing a gentler face. But if he was lying, then I had just stepped into someone else's revenge, and it wasn't mine anymore. Outside, thunder cracked like a verdict. Inside, the clock hit midnight. And I finally understood that nothing about this story was finished. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the photograph glowed behind my eyelids. Rachel and Lily, shoulder to shoulder, laughing like sisters at a secret no one else could hear. If Ren was telling the truth, I'd been living inside a play where every line had already been written. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the clouds stayed low and heavy, as if the sky hadn't decided what kind of day it wanted to be. My hands shook when I poured coffee. I didn't drink it. Instead, I stared at my phone, at Lily's name, and felt a knot twist under my ribs. At noon, she texted first. Are you okay? I typed, deleted, retyped. Finally, we need to talk. In person. She agreed to meet at the old botanical park downtown. It was public, safe enough, I told myself. When I arrived, the air smelled of wet soil and the faint sweetness of magnolia. Lily stood near the fountain, her white jacket bright against the gray marble. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said. Maybe I have. I took the photograph from my pocket and handed it to her. You want to tell me what this is? Her smile vanished. She stared at the picture, color draining from her face. Where did you get that? Run. She didn't answer right away. Her jaw worked as if words hurt. Finally, she said, it's not what it looks like. Then tell me what it is. We were friends once. Before everything fell apart. Rachel and I volunteered at a youth program together. That photo was from back then. Before she met him. Before she became who she became. Her voice trembled. It could have been guilt or truth or both. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I didn't know how, she said. I thought I could separate the past from now. But Ren won't let me. He never lets go of anything. Before I could answer, a voice cut through the air like a blade. Well, isn't this cozy? I turned. Rachel stood a few yards away, sunglasses pushed into her hair, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. A few heads turned. The fountain splashed behind her like applause. Rachel, I said carefully, what are you doing here? Following a hunch, she said, stepping closer. Turns out my instincts are still perfect. You two make a cute couple. Lily went rigid beside me. Rachel, please. No. Go on, Rachel interrupted. Tell him how we met. Tell him how we used to laugh about guys like him. Or do you want me to? People nearby slowed their steps. Phones tilted discreetly. I felt the air change, thickening with that hungry curiosity crowds always have before a scene. Stop it, Lily said, her voice breaking. You don't have to do this. Don't I? Rachel's smile flickered. You destroyed my life. You and your brother. You think I'm just going to disappear quietly? I didn't destroy anything, Lily shot back. You did that yourself. Rachel took another step forward, eyes burning. He doesn't know the half of it, does he? About how you begged Rin to set me up so you could play the perfect victim? About the recording you kept? Enough, I said, louder than I meant to. The word echoed through the courtyard. Rachel blinked. The mask cracked for the first time. For a moment, I saw something raw underneath. Hurt, maybe even regret. Then she laughed, brittle and tired. Fine, she said. You'll learn the truth eventually. They always do. She turned and walked away, heels striking hard against the stone. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Someone actually clapped. I wanted to disappear. Lily stood frozen, face pale, hands trembling. Ethan, I swear she's twisting it. She's desperate. I exhaled slowly, feeling the eyes still on us. We should go. At my house, silence sat thick as dust. Lily paced near the window, words spilling too fast. She's lying. She's trying to ruin me. Rin must have told her something. Stop, I said quietly. Just stop. Her shoulders sagged. You believe her. I don't know what to believe, I said. But people don't explode like that for nothing. She's unstable. You saw it. Maybe. Or maybe she finally cracked under something we don't understand. Lily turned, tears bright in her eyes. Do you think I planned any of this? That I found you two to humiliate her? I wanted to say no. I wanted to reach for her, to erase the tremor in her voice. But the photograph, the text, the look on Rachel's face, they crowded between us like ghosts who refused to leave. I think we've both been used, I said finally. She looked away, whispering something I almost didn't catch. You don't know how right you are. What does that mean? But she didn't answer. She picked up her bag, eyes shining wet under the fading light. I need to think, she said. Please don't follow me. The door closed softly behind her. I stood there for a long time, the echo of the crowd still in my ears. I replayed every detail, the flash of phones, the whispers, the way Rachel's voice trembled when she said they always do. When I finally sat down, my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. This time, it wasn't a warning, just a photo. Lily, standing on my porch. The timestamp said 10 minutes ago. Only she wasn't alone. Beside her, half in shadow, stood a man whose posture I recognized even through the grainy pixels. Ren. And under the image, a single line of text. You really thought the story was about you? My throat went dry. Outside, the maple tree scraped against the window, its branches dragging like fingers over glass. Whatever game they'd started, I had just realized I was still playing, and I didn't even know the rules. The photo of my porch wouldn't leave my mind. I kept zooming in as if the pixels might confess a truer thing. Lily half-turned, Ren a shadow at her shoulder, timestamped 10 minutes before I noticed anything wrong. I opened the front door anyway, like the night might still be holding their outlines. Only the porch light, the smell of damp wood, the maple whispering over the roof. Inside, I laid out what I knew. The anonymous warning, the old photo of Lily with Rachel, the scene at the park, and now my own doorstep captured like a trophy. Somewhere in that sequence, a hand I had trusted was moving the pieces. How did someone take that picture without me hearing? The answer was small and ugly. I wanted the story to be about healing. Wanting is a kind of sleep. I walked the house, letting my eyes touch every seam. In the office, a faint scuff under the window latch. Maybe old. It felt fresh. In the drawer with my hard drive sat a flash drive I didn't recognize. Smooth, unmarked, wrong. I set it on the kitchen table and plugged it into my laptop. One folder/listen. Inside, 6 audio files named by date. The newest matched the night I introduced Lily to Rachel. I pressed play. A door whispering. Breath. My voice. This is Lily. My girlfriend. Rachel's whisper. You're Ren's sister. Lily. Even. You remember. I stopped the file. When I let it run, the room replayed itself. Chairs scraping, glasses touching, our silence turned into evidence. Someone had planted a microphone in my house. Someone had named the folder a command. I traced vents and fixtures with my fingers. It took an hour to find it. A pinhole glued under the lip of the kitchen light. I pried it loose and crushed it in the garage. The sound was smaller than my anger. Back at the table, I opened another file. The night we baked the cherry pie. The same warmth, now contaminated. Our clumsy laughter, the ding of the oven, the soft scrape when she slid her phone into a drawer. When she whispered my name as we swayed by the record player, a part of me recoiled from the tenderness of my own life. The last file was short. Went on a porch. Ren's voice. You're sure he hasn't looked? Lily, close. He's not suspicious yet. He still thinks I'm here for him. A pause. Ren, you don't owe him anything. Lily, I know. That's the problem. Click. 2 facts remained. I'd been surveilled, and I'd been softened to accept it. I texted instead of begging for the gentle version. Come over. We need to talk. Her reply arrived at once. I'm already outside. On the steps she looked smaller, porch light turning her eyes to glass. I wanted to pretend none of it existed. The second passed. In, I said. She saw the laptop, the gutted light fixture, the screws like silver seeds. Ethan, I can explain. Do it. Ren came back 2 weeks after I met you, she said. He said Rachel was spiraling, and you were the quickest path to the truth. He also said if I didn't help, he'd make sure what happened to me before happened again. What happened to you? I trusted someone who turned my life into a game. Ren calls what he does protection. I call it control. She glanced at the drive. He planted the mic. He sent the porch photo. He wanted you to find this when you were too far in to walk away clean. And the recordings? I listened to the first one and hated myself. I didn't listen to the rest. A tear slid, angry, not weak. I was wrong to let it happen at all. You said I wasn't owed anything, I said, hearing my voice from the file like a stranger's. But that it was the problem. At first, I didn't know you, she said. And then I did. That's the only true sentence I have. We stood in the bright kitchen, 2 people who meant to build a refuge, and opened a second door into a colder room. Part of me wanted to send her away. Part wanted to anchor her to the floor. Both urges felt like the same mistake. I'm done being handled, I said. By you, by him. If Ren wants me to listen, he can learn to hear me instead. What are you going to do? I picked up the drive. Return the favor. She hesitated. Let me help. I should have refused. Clean breaks are myths. At night, the choices are messier. Tomorrow, I said. We ended tomorrow. After she left, I copied the files, pocketed a recorder from the office, and crushed the drive the way I crushed the mic. I sat a while after the porch light clicked off, listening to the yard, slowing my breath. When I finally lay down, sleep came like a decision, not because the plan was good, but because it was mine. At dawn, the sky was steel. I dressed, pocketed the recorder, and wrote Ren a message with the same blunt cold he'd used on me. Pier 9. Tonight. Come alone. /listen. I hit send and watched the read receipt blink alive. The second door stood open, and for the first time since Rachel said she needed a real man, I knew which side I would stand on when it closed. Dusk turned the river to metal. Pier 9 creaked as I walked to the end with the recorder warm in my pocket. The plan was simple. Keep Ren talking until the truth showed its edges. He came without theatrics, hood up, jaw set. He stopped a few feet away, eyes on the skyline. You picked my place, he said. Mirror me or erase me? Hear yourself? I said. You left a folder called /listen in my house. So listen. He smirked. I gave you clarity. You gave me a crime dressed as advice. I showed the photo of Lily with Rachel. And this? Two friends before they learned what you're worth, he said. If they were friends, why wire my kitchen? Why the porch photo? You don't get careful after the fire, he said. You get careful before the next one. I let silence widen. What do you want, Ren? My sister out, he said. She owes you nothing. She owes Rachel nothing. You're just a room she used to figure out which door she hates more. And you? What do you owe? Consequences. That's what family is for. I clicked the recorder, red light under my thumb. So wiretaps and trophies are consequences? They're warnings. You ignored the gentle ones. Footsteps thudded along the planks. Rachel emerged, trench coat cinched, phone raised like a blade. Perfect, she said. Both of you in one frame. The truth finally wears a face. Go home, Rachel, I said. Home is where people believe you, she answered. I don't have one. Ren's jaw flexed. You weren't invited. Neither were you, she shot back. She aimed the camera. Wave to your parents. Maybe they'll call if you look sorry. For the first time, Ren looked human. Careful. No, she said. We're past careful. I lifted a hand. You want truth? Speak it into the same wind. I set my phone on the rail, screen black, as if it recorded too. Their eyes flicked to it. My reel recorder breathed in my pocket. How did this begin? I asked. Rachel squared herself. Lily and I met at a youth program. We bonded over fixing people who hurt us. Then I met him. She cut a glance at Ren. He taught me rules were tactical. You asked for a ruleless room, Ren said. I obliged. You handed me another secret to wear, she replied. I mistook heat for safety. And someone planted a microphone in my ceiling, I said. They both went still. You said you were done with that, Rachel whispered to Ren. And you said you were done with guilt, he replied. Who planned me? I asked. Silence. The river slapped the pilings. I did, Rachel said at last. Because hurting him would hurt the part of me that still believed him. I told Lily I wanted a stage where Ethan learned what it feels like to be watched without proof. She swallowed. We joked. Then it stopped being a joke. And then you fell for me, Ren said. I fell for the idea someone could burn away fear, she said. Instead, I learned to fear the person with the match. Her phone lowered. I'm not recording. I'm done being narrated by other people. Ren snorted. You don't quit a storm because you hate rain. And you don't protect a sister by turning her into your shadow, I said. You wired my home. You sent the photo. You pulled the strings. He turned on me. You think you see us? You're a tourist. You came for closure and got addicted to aftermath. Maybe, I said, but I'm done being your stage. I opened my hand to show the crushed pinhole mic from the kitchen light. I have copies of the files and texts. If this doesn't end tonight, they go to the police in the morning. Ren stared at the broken transmitter. For a moment I thought he'd swing. Instead he breathed out. You always pick the door with glass, he muttered. Fine. I'm out. She's out. He jerked his chin at Rachel. You too. I was out when I walked up, she said. He turned and vanished into the dark, footsteps swallowed by water. Rachel and I stood with the city humming behind us. She pocketed the phone. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. From you or from the part of me that wants a gentle version of this. I'm not handing out absolution, I said. Just boundaries. She nodded. That's kinder. She started to go, then paused. Be careful with Lily. Caring for someone doesn't mean you stop checking the lock. She left without drama. When the pier was empty again, I pressed stop on the recorder and watched the tiny screen glow. On the walk home, my hands stopped shaking. I wasn't sure what I wanted from Lily. Confession, apology, a map. Maybe none of it. Maybe only a truth that doesn't need a microphone to exist. At my porch I hesitated, remembering the photo that opened the second door. Inside, the house smelled like lemon and wood. I locked the deadbolt, set the recorder on the table, and sat with the quiet until it softened. Tomorrow I would decide who heard the tape. Tonight, I kept it for myself, the proof I could stand in the weather without borrowing anyone's storm. Morning came pale and clean, the kind of light that makes even lies look soft. I hadn't slept. The recorder sat on the table like a heartbeat that wouldn't quit, filled with everyone's confessions, Ren's threats, Rachel's cracks, my own exhaustion echoing between them. I brewed coffee that went cold before I could taste it. By 8, my phone buzzed. Can I come by? Lily. Yes, I typed, though my hands hesitated. When she arrived, she looked smaller than the night before. No armor, no lipstick, just the face of someone who had run out of versions to play. She walked straight to the table, eyes falling on the recorder. "So it's done," she said quietly. "It's recorded," I answered. "Done is a different word." She sat opposite me. "Run." "Gone," I said. "Maybe for good." Her shoulders loosened for a breath, then tensed again. "And Rachel?" "She'll spin her story," I said. Maybe that's all any of us ever do. The silence between us was heavy, but not hostile. It was the kind of silence that belongs to people who've shared too much truth to pretend again. "I keep thinking about that night at the cafe," she said finally. "You look like someone waiting for the world to apologize. I wanted to give you that. I thought if I could fix one broken man, maybe I'd forgive my brother, too." I almost smiled. "That's a lot of work for one cup of coffee." Her laugh cracked in the middle. "You were the only part that wasn't a lie." I looked at her then, really looked. The woman who'd been a stranger, a companion, a spy, and something in between. "So what now?" "I'm leaving town," she said. "My brother can keep his ghosts. I'm tired of carrying them." I nodded slowly. "Where? Does it matter?" "No," I admitted. She reached across the table, brushed my hand. "You could come with me." I thought about it. About driving west with the windows down, no past, no recordings, no names. But then I looked around my house, the cracked mug, the quiet maple shadow on the wall, and realized leaving wouldn't make me new. It would just make me missing. "I can't," I said. "Running feels too much like the old US." She nodded, though her eyes said she'd hoped for a different line. "Then promise me something. Don't let this story be the last thing you remember about love." "I'll try." She stood, shouldered her bag, lingered by the door. "You were never the target, Ethan. You were the test." Then she left. By noon, I drove to the police station. The clerk behind the counter looked bored until I set the recorder down. "It's evidence," I said simply. She took my statement without questions, just paperwork and procedure. When I walked out, the sunlight hit harder, like the world had been rinsed of something foul. I didn't tell Rachel. I didn't tell Lily. The truth was already loose, and truth never asks permission before it changes shape. Days passed. The house settled into a new rhythm. Quiet mornings, slow evenings, the maple throwing longer shadows as fall deepened. Sometimes I'd hear a car stop outside and feel my pulse spike, but it was always just the mailman or a lost tourist asking for directions. The ghosts had learned to knock politely. One night, I finally deleted all the remaining files. No more evidence, no more archives. Just silence. The kind you earn. I sat by the window with a drink, watching the moon carve silver lines through the branches. My reflection looked older, but steadier. For the first time, I didn't flinch from it. I thought of Rachel, somewhere rehearsing her next version of the truth. Of Run, drifting through cities, chasing control he'd never own. Of Lily, maybe driving west with the windows down, finally lighter. And of myself, finally a man who didn't need to prove he was real. Sometimes revenge looks like justice. Sometimes it just looks like survival. But tonight, it looked like peace. I turned off the lamp, let the room darken around me, and whispered the only word that felt right. Enough. Outside, the maple tree rustled softly, as if it agreed.